Okay.
Thank you for coming to our first Friday meeting. We've been doing this since October of last year. And just in case there are new folks, there's new faces, at least to me. The idea behind this meeting is to create a space where folks from all different sectors here in Muncie can come and we can have conversations related to abandoned property, the issue of abandoned property in Muncie, vacant property, and housing development. We've had folks from city government, we've had nonprofit folks, we've had local developers, community members. What we really hope this space becomes is a place for kind of innovative models, things that are working in other places in Indiana and even beyond potentially. And we'd love for where there's enthusiasm, when we have someone that comes and speaks and there's certain ideas that kind of emerge, that we can maybe follow up with maybe another meeting, potentially a site visit. What we hope is that this becomes something that turns into actual proposals for Muncie. We're starting just kind of just by creating the space, but we do hope that this eventually, the things that we're learning about, that they turn into something that can actually impact Muncie, specifically related to those issues, abandoned property and housing development. We like to, for folks, if this is your first time, I'm going to ask you please to just tell us your name, where you're coming from, if you're connected to an organization, just so we can put a name to a face. So if this is your first time, would you please introduce yourself?
I'm John Creek. I'm here with Pat Redmond. We're from Harper City, and we've been involved in eliminating blighted houses for a long time, and we're just beginning to rehab houses and build houses. So this is opportune for us to, we need capital, we have builders, but we need capital and some support in maybe revitalizing and infill housing in Harper City.
Great, thanks for coming. We're introducing ourselves, new people.
My name is Jason Cosby. I'm a graduate student at Ball State, Department of Urban Planning. Just here to check out this season.
I'm Logan Atkins. I'm a graduate student at Continental Agriculture.
Thanks for coming, guys. There's food over there on the table if you want.
I'm Stephanie Quick. I'm president of Intend Indiana. Just happy for the invitation today, and I won't jump into Intend Indiana. The team up there is going to cover all that, but definitely here to support and answer any questions y'all might have.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
I'm Annette Phillips. I'm the Community Development Director for Pastone and also a Muncie Land Bank board member.
You have to introduce your dad.
This is Ralph West. He's my dad. I'm on the Muncie Land Bank board. He's visiting me for the weekend, so.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for coming, Mr. West. Okay, well, I don't know if I said my name is Nate Howard. I'm the Executive Director at the Muncie Land Bank. And so I'm going to turn it over now to the Intend team. Thank you all for coming. We really, really appreciate this. And hopefully this is first of many connections and building from here. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello. Thank you for hosting us and providing lunch. We appreciate being invited places to have food. It's always great. I'm Evan Tester. I'm the Director of Lending for Intend Indiana, and this is the other Intend staff. There's many others that couldn't come, but we appreciate being here and talking about what we do. So I've introduced myself. In my capacity as the Director of Lending, I basically manage staff who run the day-to-day lending activities for commercial lending and affordable housing lending, and I'll let the other staff introduce themselves.
My name is Jeb Reese. I manage the Indianapolis Land Bank, and I also do outreach and affordable housing stuff. So I bug the people up here in Muncie all the time to apply for grants and things like that. But yeah, I'm an alum of the Ball State Urban Planning Program, so I'm happy to be back in Muncie.
Hello, I'm Ben Harris. I'm the Assistant Director of Real Estate Development. Work a lot with our housing development side of things, also with our land banking, and some with our lending as well. And we have a full team. I'll just mention who weren't able to be here as far as on the housing side. 2 real estate managers with Mia Gutierrez and Josh Mullins, and Jose Rodriguez, who is a Muncie Ball State.
He's in the Urban Planning Graduate Program. Yeah.
Graduate program is our real estate specialist. So we're very happy to be here and talk about more of the things we do.
Good afternoon, David Herron. I am the Build Fund Portfolio Manager. I run the small business lending for Intend Indiana. We have a small business product called Build Smart, which we'll talk about more today. It's more designed for contractors and developers.
Hi everybody, I'm Kim Wary. I'm the Residential Loan Portfolio Manager at Intend. So I run the single family initiatives that we have. Home Smart is the home purchase program. And then we have Indy Amp, that's a refinance product. So I'm usually the first point of contact for like prospects that are interested in our programs and wanting to enroll.
And so obviously you don't know what Intend is. So we're a local nonprofit, local in Indianapolis, Marion County, Community Development Corporation, a CDC as we call it. We perform affordable housing developments through our entity called Affordable Home Matters. We perform land bank activities through Renew Land Bank. And we have 2 CDFIs, Edge Fund and Build Fund. Let's go into more detail to basically explain how we got to where we are. We've had other names in the past, so we originally were called King Park Area Development Corporation. It was created in 1987 to undertake affordable housing development in the King Park area. It's a specific neighborhoods in Indianapolis. It's been in existence for 30 years, primarily using funding from HUD in the city of Indianapolis, doing owner-occupied repair or new construction of housing. In the mid-2005s, we did a very large housing project called Fall Creek Place. I don't know how many of you go through Indianapolis, but if you're driving south, you'll go through. It's a very nice area. It's totally changed from what it used to look like. That was a partnership with the city of Indianapolis and HUD. And we're going to jump many years into the future because most of us don't have that experience with King Park. But roughly around 2010, King Park started doing more multifamily and economic development activities in its service area. In 2015, we created the Build Fund. The Build Fund is and we'll get more into that later, but it was created as a separate LLC owned by King Park and certified by the CDFI Fund in the U.S. Treasury Department. Basically, it works at that time, we wanted to work in the strong and anemic housing markets of King Park. But pretty quickly after we started Build Fund, we started to get requests to lend outside of the King Park area, and we did that. In 2018, we created the entity called Edge Fund. Edge Fund is our affordable housing lender. It does affordable lending for single family and multifamily housing. And in 2020, King Park changed its name to Renew Indianapolis to announce its expansion throughout Marion County. Renew's changed again in 2022 to Intend Indiana because many of its programs are starting to look outside of Marion County into the surrounding township or counties. And from 2021 to 2022, and actually currently, Intend's programs are beginning to coordinate with one another, such as land bank, affordable housing, and lending, to see where we overlap and see how we can work with one another. And now we're actually looking outside of Marion County into partnerships that we can make with other entities, for-profit, nonprofits, and banks outside of Marion County. And I think from there we go to Build Fund.
Yes, please.
Hello again. So Build Fund, like I said, is our small business lending program that we have. We have a pretty diverse spectrum, anywhere from retail to we even link to a mortuary as well. So we're looking to actually purchase another place to actually house, actually double their business for the most part. The place that they were in, they were renting, and it was really worn down. So we were able to lend to an actual former veterinarian spot, which they'll be able to kind of double their business. So, like Evan said, Bill Fund is a CDFI as well. We actually do small business lending. We, of course, are mission driven. We like to keep a lot of our applicants in, like I said, a wide spectrum. So, women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, kind of keep that community base in mind anytime we're lending. Bill Smart. So, like I said, Bill Smart is our home product that we have designed specifically for developers and for contractors. So, it's a 12-month program that we have where we will actually lend you the funds in order to actually build and construct affordable housing, little A affordable housing. So, it's a really good opportunity, especially because a lot of contractors, the biggest opportunities that they have is capital a lot of times. So just being able to kind of build that capital, so we assist with that part. Bevel Greens is a borrower that we lent to last year. It was a $411,000 construction. They're actually building 6 houses in the city of Indianapolis on 3 land bank lots. Circle H is another construction company that we help, $234,000. They're actually building 3 homes. This house that we have up here, they just completed within like 6 months. It's already been sold and everything like that. So they're working on 2 more houses as we speak now. Act Development is a minority-owned business. She's been in business, I want to say, since early 2000s, like 2005. Blancha. She's building 1 construction on the west side of Indianapolis. Executive Property Group, he actually had built 3 separate homes on 1 large lot. So they're similar looking homes. They're actually in the process of trying to sell those homes. 2 are under contract right now to be able to be sold for affordable housing as well. Heartland Environmental, we lent to them to be able to.
You need me to explain what?
Yeah,
This is before.
Harlan was before I started, so.
Yeah, so we lent $350,000. So I added this, even though it isn't housing, to show that this was an empty lot. Actually, that's what it was before. It was an empty lot. It had a mechanics shop on it. It was contaminated, blighted building that neighborhood wanted gone, basically. And so actually, King Park aided with the developer. We actually bought the sites, and then we lent to the developer to purchase it from us, and then they pulled the tanks and then turned it actually from this into that. And so obviously, instead of being a blighted structure in the neighborhood that is a blight to the neighborhood, it becomes something that the neighborhood points to the new modern building in their neighborhood. And so we lent $350,000 for that. There's a partnership between us and an environmental firm, Heartland Environmental. And then also it kind of, I wouldn't say necessarily activated that space because it is an office building, but basically as you come in, you can't see it from here, as you come in from under the highway, in either direction you see this as the first thing you kind of see when you come to the neighborhood. So definitely kind of change the texture of the neighborhood as you come into it, basically at that point. And so that kind of created a bookend at the end of the neighborhood of a nice construction, attractive building there, which was kind of several blocks away where other construction was happening. So there's a whole neighborhood in between here that we are also working in, and other for-profit entities are coming in now doing work because we started doing work in that neighborhood.
We actually have, correct me if I'm wrong, and we worked with Heartland before.
Yeah.
As far as like doing actual work as well too. So we go back and patron the people that we try to help as well. FGN, so we lent, thank you. We lent $130,000 to FGN to acquire mechanic shops. So now we rehabbing the mechanic shops, and now they use it for the actual gym area.
And that's the same thing. So I wanted to show, I put that in there to show that we obviously do a lot with housing, but obviously you have a lot of commercial, empty buildings, boarded up buildings that you also need to deal with too, because they're oftentimes people will squat there, a lot of drug use in those buildings, and also they're very unattractive. They can be turned into use, creating tax base for the city, employing people. And so I wanted to show that in that PowerPoint that we've also lent to projects in that site. So CDFIs can do that, help bring activity to a place where typically banks don't lend to.
This is Tinker House. So we invested about $1.6 million grant funding into Tinker House. Before selling the developer to finish the rehabilitation, Bill Fund lent $950,000 to the developer to finish the development of the site and attract tenants. And we also have another borrower that we actually helped at H&M, who is actually housed in Tinker House currently as well. So H&M, we spent roughly around $1 million for acquisition and rehab of this particular former Ford building. And H&M is a retail space. They do hard cider, I believe. It's a beautiful space that they have now in the Tinker House building now. So a little bit of the small business lending impacts that we have. We lent roughly a little over $8 million, created about 250 full-time jobs, supported about 130 businesses through loans or technical assistance, rehabbed acquired about 405,000 of commercial real estate space, and leveraged about $45 million in total funds.
Thank you.
Thank you. This year. You can have it, but I don't think I have it.
All right, so Edge Fund is the other CDC, which stands for Community Development Corporation that we have at Intend. So through that, it's a loan, like I said, loan fund operated by Intend Indiana, a nonprofit mission-driven lender. We were certified in 2019 by the U.S. CDFI Fund. And we provide financing for the creation and preservation of affordable housing, both single family and multifamily. How we do that is we use private and public funding to capitalize our lending activities. So as far as the single family initiatives we have Home Smart, our Home Smart loan program. This offers low and moderate income individuals in the community the opportunity to purchase market rate housing with a below market rate mortgage. Right now, this is strictly in Marion County, but hopefully in the future we will be able to spread this statewide. So some of the features of this program, you don't have to be a first-time home buyer. So if someone has had a house or owned a home in previous years, they could still qualify for this, but it has to be their primary residence. It's eligible for individuals purchasing a single family residence. So one really great feature of this product is it is a fixed 2% conventional rate mortgage for the whole 30-year loan. And it's 100% maximum loan to value, and there's no down payment required. Usually the borrower just has to pay for closing costs, which are a couple $1,000s. There's also no private mortgage insurance required for this. Some of the benefits, there's access to affordable housing in neighborhoods of choice, minimal closing costs, and no down payment required. So here are some pictures of some of the borrowers that have used our program to buy a home. These are all from last year in 2022. Then the IndyAMP program is our refinance product that we have. This allows homeowners negatively affected by COVID-19 to refinance mortgage debt at a low interest rate for up to 30 years. It allows people to remain in their homes and become current with their mortgages and lower their monthly payments. I actually have a borrower that's going to close on Monday, and she is going to be saving around $700 a month in her bills through this program. So like I said, it's a 3% fixed interest rate for up to 30 years. This was actually created in 2021 as a result of COVID-19, because obviously a lot of people have been affected by that, losing their jobs. We can refinance the mortgage debt anywhere between $20,000 and $200,000. There's 10, 20, and 30-year options. Another great thing about this program is there's a 90-day deferral of their first payment, so they don't have to make their first payment for 3 months, which helps them even further in catching up on, money and bills and things like that. The credit score, the minimum credit score is 600, and that's the same with HomeSmart as well. So both of our single-family initiatives, the minimum credit score has to be 600. There's no appraisal required with this refinance product. We use MyBor and do a property evaluation report. And the home value just has to be at or below 95% of comparable home values. Some of the benefits of this program, we annualize income based on the most recent 30-day pay stubs, flexible loan terms, no appraisal required, and closing costs can be included in the new loan, so they can work the closing costs in, so the borrower doesn't have to bring much to closing, and there's no mortgage insurance required. At this moment, the program requirements are for Marion County homeowners that live in target market zip codes that have been affected by COVID-19, or they can self-certify on the application that they've been affected by COVID-19. Their existing mortgage debt has to be between $20,000 and $200,000, and they have to have some form of steady income for 2 years. So some of the bank partners that we partner with for our single family initiatives are the two right now that we have are Stockyards Bank and Merchants Bank of Indiana. We're really fortunate to have them working with us because it would not be possible to do the kinds of things that we do without their help. So once an applicant has been income qualified at Intend, then I send their file to either Stockyards or Merchants, and then they go through the mortgage application with the loan officer there. There's specific underwriting guidelines that we have set for IndyAmp and HomeSmart. So how we kind of figured out the underwriting guidelines is to be more flexible so that we can get people into these programs. And once the loan closes with the bank, Edge Fund buys back the loan from the bank in the full amount. So the borrower will pay their monthly mortgage payments directly to Merchants Bank of Indiana because they service all of our Edge Fund loans. One great way to kind of get banks to want to be a part of your organization is just to note that you can help fulfill their CRA requirements. So CRA stands for Community Reinvestment Act, and it requires financial institutions to assist low to moderate income borrowers in the communities that they do business in. Here are some of the homes, the IndyAmp homes that we have lent to.
So I also wanted to note that a lot of what we do is born out of a need, or trying to fill gaps that aren't served already in the market. And so when we created Edge Fund, and it's one of its marquee products, BritSmart, we created Edge Fund to not only do single family, but also multifamily, because there's a need specifically for multifamily or preservation of a current affordable housing. And so these are 4 existing loans we made to basically preserve affordable housing in Marion County. And so while that doesn't sound really exciting, it really is important to maintain affordable housing for your workforce or anyone who wants to live in the area that they have family. And so that's another product we created out of need, and also because ICDA, the state's agency, also asked us to create this basically because there is a need throughout the state, not just in Marion County. And so some of the other affordable housing impacts. So far in the few years that we've been doing Edge Fund and its lending, we lent $15 million total lent, 6.4 for affordable multifamily housing, which has preserved or created 242 units, 8.7 million lent for single family housing, and 54 affordable single-family housing units have been, or basically 54 households have been put into affordable housing due to this loan product. So that's pretty good in just a few years. Actually, it's kind of amazing. And home matters. Actually, I don't have your slides.
Oh,
Sorry.
appreciate it.
I didn't want to carry all that.
I can wing it. How's everybody doing? I know we're going through a lot of information, and I apologize. I'm so nasally. My allergies are so bad this week. But if you have questions, feel free to throw your hand up. We're going through a lot of stuff, I know. And we also have, just FYI, some swag and information in the back table. So feel free to take that with you as you leave. As I mentioned, I'm the Assistant Director of Real Estate Development, which really concentrates on the construction side, both new construction and rehabs in the areas that we work in. I'm going to dive through a number of the projects that we've worked on so far. I've been here with King Park, started about 10 years ago, and one of the first major projects we took on was Monon 16. That is an area just 2 miles north of downtown Indianapolis, if you're familiar with Indy. And if you're familiar with the Monon Trail, which runs from downtown Indy all the way up past Westfield. I don't know how far they've gone. They just keep going. But very long trail, very popular. Referred to in a lot of areas as the oceanfront property for Indianapolis, but mainly on the north side. Monon 16 in the downtown sector was very abandoned industrial homes that have been in decay or fallen to the ground that we hadn't seen new home construction or rehabs for about 40 to 50 years of abandonment. So this project was multifaceted in so many ways. You can see pictures of what we dealt with on a daily basis of illegal dumping and lots of eyesores for the folks that were still loyal to Pride in the neighborhood, long-term residents were living around a lot of this. So Monon 16, we partnered with the city of Indianapolis. It's the first time our housing side of things also introduced and brought on what the lending team was working on in a mortgage product. Because some of the things we've learned through the years is we want to develop on our side of things the most affordable but quality homes we possibly can for our low to moderate income households. But sometimes just doing the structures themselves doesn't make it affordable. So by pairing it with a product in our Edge Fund, kind of bridges that gap. With, as Kim mentioned, the credit score. Credit scores keep a lot of people from being able to afford even quality, affordable housing developed by folks like us or other entities, because not everybody's had a life that has been easy to get those credit scores. That's why we put it at a minimum 600, and kind of evening that playing field for everybody, that if you're coming to us, no matter if you have a 601 credit score, if you had a little bit easier in life and you have a 750, you're still get that 2% interest rate. So it's the first time we unveiled both the new construction homes with a mortgage product. Didn't have to use our mortgage product on that, but 100% of people that went through it, it just was no brainer to use our mortgage product paired with it. So this was also really unique in the fact that there was so much land and it was so much potential being 2 miles from downtown Indianapolis. Monon Trail there, College Avenue, if you're familiar with Indianapolis. Fall Creek Place, as Evan mentioned, happened just to the west of there, and College was kind of that barrier, that busy street that we thought it's never going to cross over. How are we going to get it to push over to the other side? But there's so much potential and so much opportunity and so much land that we and the city of Indianapolis owned at that time through land banks, through acquiring over the years, that other people just did not see valuable. So we partnered with really two builders. One was a nationwide builder that built a lot of market rate homes. The other kind of has had experience doing a mixture of both. we ended up working with about 5 total builders on other projects. But one of the first things we took on in Monon 16, I'm not sure what the slide is next, and I see it now, so I'm not gonna move ahead. We started with rehabs. A lot of times our projects start with rehabs. When we know we're gonna work in an area and we wanna get in there and acquire as much as possible that we can, knowing that investors, and especially out of states, East Coast, West Coast, takes note of when big investment announcements are happening, and they swoop in and they make it very unaffordable, very hard for us as a nonprofit, let alone local developers who are market and care a little bit more about the city of Minneapolis or the city of Muncie. So we've started that with a number of our projects, and it started the same way with Monon 16. But when it was all said and done, we probably did about 90 homes total in this 8 to 10 block area next to the Monon Trail. Now that was a mixture of about 60 market rate homes, and we had a unique opportunity to sprinkle in moderate household incomes and low household incomes, all living together, mixed in, not one section is low income, one section is market. It's all blended in. And it was one of our key targets to make sure if I were to tell you the streets to drive down, you're not gonna be able to pick out which one is the affordable, which one's the moderate household incomes, and which one's the market rate household incomes. So the market rate housing in Monon 16, we were expecting upper 200s, 300 when it's all said and done. It ended up being about 400,000 on the market rate side, which is great because we don't work in that world, but we want that world for our low and moderate income households. So a large portion, probably about, I'd say 18 to 20 homes were for 80% AMI, which is the area median income, considered low income households for them. And then we had a small percentage that fit that 80 to 120%, because a lot of times that fraction kind of gets missed, and even more so nowadays as far as incomes, households, families that are able to afford. And what we really want is people to be able to have opportunities in these what's ends up being elite neighborhoods that a lot of low income, moderate income households just don't ever have a chance to live in. One of our big missions is all about generational wealth building, and Monon 16 is a prime example. A lot of our low income household family members were walking in with $60,000 to $70,000 in equity before they even got the keys to their house, which is wonderful for us. This is another one of the homes we did, one of the last homes we did in Monon. Yes, got a question?
A couple questions.
Yes.
And I hope that there's a lot as we close up too, things that we've already talked about. But you mentioned acquiring. How did you guys do that?
Good question. A number of different ways. I mean, we're a part of a First Look program, National Community Stabilization Trust. So we can offer a lot of properties through that in all areas. I mean, we actually see a lot in Anderson, haven't seen a lot of Muncie through that program, which we can talk more about.
Yeah.
I don't have it in this program, in this slide presentation, but we can talk further about that. But through that, through the city of Minneapolis, through our own gathering of when we know we're going to be working in an area, we're taking real look at all the lots. We have great partnerships. I should say it's not just Intend or Renew, and we work with the organizations in the neighborhood. So like Monon 16, we had a lot of partners involved. So they were able to word of mouth say, I know they are trying to offload this property. And really targeting, we're not targeting homeowners either. We want them staying in the neighborhoods. We're targeting out-of-state investors. We're targeting who can we get that we know is not taking pride in the property, and how can we acquire it? So it's not a one answer.
Yeah.
It's really a combination of things as we're looking at parcel by parcel, especially where we're looking, who owns this, what's the status of it, how can we get that? Yes, sir.
Just a follow-up on that, when you acquire the property, does the land bank hold it, or does it go, what legal entity holds the property?
We would own it if we
Okay.
acquired it at that time. Yeah, not the land bank. That's all comes through us with a partnership through the city of Minneapolis.
Okay.
And, go ahead.
I was just saying we have multiple entities and they operate for certain specific purposes. So Land Bank has its own, and I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah,
It's
I
own
think
agreement
that
with the
makes
city.
sense. Yeah.
So that's a whole other thing. But then Ben kind of is representing an entity that's under N10, which is Affordable Home Matters. That's our development arm.
Yeah.
So they also acquire and develop properties. Sometimes they'll use a land bank lot, sometimes they won't.
Right.
So it really depends. And so that staff is really good at targeting that stuff, whereas my staff's good at lending stuff. And so I don't really know everything, how they acquire all that stuff, and they do it. So it really depends on the situation. There's a lot of different situations.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what kind of mechanisms do you guys use to make, or to encourage people to not just get the house and then sell it at market rate?
We have affordability periods, so we put that on all of our homes. So vast majority are going to be a 10-year affordability period that they have to maintain it as their primary residence. We don't want, and most of our partners don't want us investing a lot of money, especially in small areas, and then have turnover immediately. We want to ensure for at least the next decade that folks are coming to us who want to live and put their roots in the community. As I mentioned, we've done a lot of rehab work, different mechanisms as far as what programs or funding or what we've worked on. We've done throughout Marion County. We had a period that was really exciting where we were able, through the First Look program, to get a lot of properties to offer and have more availability. We're always going to be doing probably projects that are in a focus area that are larger scale, but we also want opportunities if folks are coming to us and they really need housing and quality housing, but maybe not want to live right where we're working, to have those opportunities in our pipeline as well. I've talked a lot and I have a lot more slides I haven't started, so I'm gonna fly through these. So one of the big projects we're working on now is in Martindale-Brightwood, which is just a little further east of the Monon Trail. So we've kind of just moved along from Fall Creek to Monon 16, which is basically Kennedy King neighborhood. That Monon 16 is just the project name. But one of the exciting things we're working on now, wrapping up one and continuing working, is two partnerships. One, again, with the city of Indianapolis. We were fortunate to receive, with Monon 16, we received the first ever Lift Indy grant the city of Indianapolis had. And then 3 years later, we received one of the, I think it was probably their third round, with Martindale-Brightwood. We also partnered with Cummins to do even more housing, affordable housing in the same area, which is really exciting because we're having a greater impact. Again, a lot of those are lots that we own. It's mainly new construction, but we began the process again with rehabs in the neighborhood. We probably did 7 or 8 rehabs before we even put foundation in for the first construction. But you can see kind of the outline of just this small area of where all new construction is happening. And this is, the reds are our rehab, just east of the park, which is undergoing a lot of renovation as well from the city. And then even further east, where kind of the heart of Martindale-Brightwood and the library is, we have more new housing coming. And we have talks even more to do more rounds. Have 2 great partners, 3 with the city of Indianapolis, 4 with Cummins, but within the community in Martindale-Brightwood CDC that we work with, and Anna Martin Christian Center, which have been based in great resource centers for the community. One of the other things, this is kind of off topic as far as, it's on topic but not on the construction side. One of the things we saw missing with Monon 16, or I really saw that we didn't do well, is education. We want folks in the community to have first dibs in their community to buy. And Monon 16 happened, and word of mouth just spread. You know, they just were snatched up like that by those that were in touch. And it was like, yeah, that's great. I mean, they all had to qualify. They had to go through the same process. But we didn't get ahead of that curve, and we wanted to do that with Martindale Brightwood and our Lift Indy and Home Power Cummins grant, and really offer folks, how do you qualify? What is home ownership? How do you get there? And our bank partners have been wonderful. Our lending team, we partner with 100% together to run these classes, and we do these now in all of the areas that we're going to be working in to make sure folks in the community know they've got first seat at the table. And it just helps build our pipeline too. Our goal is we don't want to list it to the masses. We believe in what we do, and we want to get folks in the community into our homes. Just some of our rehab work that we've done. Did not look anything like this when we purchased it or when we owned it in the beginning. All of our homes, and good point about this is we did this as well because our new construction homes are set at a certain price, and really what we believe affordable price with our mortgage product. But there's still folks that can't afford that, that $150,000 that we're doing on our new construction homes. Some of our rehabs offer these opportunities. You can see sold for $120,000. I have one on here that we did complete rehab at $100,000. Really hitting that diverse price point as well is really important. That's the one we sold for $100,000. Brand new. All of them come with kitchen appliances. We want folks also on our rehabs. We call them like new because if they're going to be in there 10 years, bare minimum, we want to make sure they're not faced with the burden of unseemly and not prepared costs as far as new HVAC and the other things that are things that push people into foreclosure. We want to try and avoid that and set them up as much as possible. That's one of our families that moved in just last year at one of our rehabs. This is one of our 2 stories underway with our partnership with Cummins in the Martindale Brightwood area. We do a number of different styles, single story, 2 stories. Some we've done with garages. A lot of times to keep it more affordable, we'll just put a gravel pad, things that they can do in the future to keep it more affordable, but set them up, even if it is without garages. So these numbers I'm not going to spend a lot of time on because they're probably off now because we have sold so many, but I try to update them as many times. And this is just with our Cummins project with Home Power that is partnered with our Linear product. You can see the investment we have already. We're very dedicated to minority construction teams, general contractors, women-owned, veteran-owned, minority, as well as subcontractors. We really pushed and had incredible success in our contractors. It's one thing that we do struggle with still in Indy is lack of qualified contractors, and our ideas of expansion and doing more. One of the things that's hindered us is folks ready and able to bid on our projects. I don't know if you guys see that up here. And then this is, like I talked about, more that we have coming in the works. Also working, just want to throw out there another project. We got the Lift Indy 2022 grant, which is on the far east side of Indianapolis as well, which is kind of our first take at, you can see the condition it is now, some of these that we picked up, but kind of our first real heavy impact in a suburban ring. A lot of what we've done is urban core, and now we're with the far east side. It's a completely different looking neighborhoods and construction and opportunities. So hopefully that any other questions or anything? There's a lot to go through right now.
Could you describe the relationship with Cummins? I'm very interested in how that came about and what that funding looks like.
Stephanie, you want to jump in on that one?
Sure. So that relationship, it came about, they actually approached us just because they had an interest to invest in Black home ownership, specifically in the Martindale Brightwood neighborhood. So as Ben mentioned, we already had the partnership with the CDC and in the community center, and our intense focus was housing development. So they approached us with an opportunity to provide additional subsidy for the homes that we were already planning to build or rehab in the area. And what that is, that's a $90,000 subsidy per home that Cummins provides. So that with those homes, we sell those for the construction price, which is at $240,000. So then with that $90,000 subsidy, which goes onto the property as a soft second, so no payments, no interest for 10 years, so long as they remain in the home. That first mortgage, which is our Home Smart mortgage, is $150. So most buyers are coming in at equity at about 30%, I believe. Yes. Yeah. So tremendous opportunity for low to moderate income buyers.
And a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, brand new home, around the average about $726 a month is their mortgage payment, and that includes taxes and insurance. I mean, where can you find a quality apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment for $700? You can in Indianapolis, I know that. So you mentioned touring. We'd love to have you folks down, and we can tour all of Mardell Brightwood.
Yeah.
We welcome you guys down there. We'd love to show it off, have homes in different stages, and can show you what we've done. So
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
So I am the land bank guy, and I want to start off by talking about a misconception. I think a lot of people outside of Indianapolis kind of think that Indianapolis does not face the same, or has not faced the same issues that, places like Muncie or Gary has faced in terms of vacancy and blight, because there hasn't been that population decline. But that's not true. In Center Township, in around 2010, 2012, the vacancy and blight situation was not unlike that of Muncie or Gary, with extreme vacancy, extreme blight due to predatory lending, redlining, and just general economic disinvestment. So as a response, the land bank was developed in a partnership with the city of Indianapolis. Since 2014, the Renew Land Bank has returned over 1,270 properties to productive use in Indianapolis. These are all properties that have been chronically vacant and abandoned. Most of them come through tax sale. So in a partnership with the city of Indianapolis, whenever the county did not sell at tax sale, the city would put into the land bank for sale. So in terms of dwellings and vacant lots, we were selling the worst of the worst. We're selling what even the mysterious guys with the briefcases at tax sale did not want to buy. So it's really a testament to our work that we were able to return those properties to productive use. And just saying, if it can work there and it can work with those properties, it can absolutely work here in Muncie. And so in total, throughout the land bank's life, we've been able to leverage a total community investment of over $127 million. So that's not money that we put into the community, but money that the community put into our properties. So we have sold properties to be developed for affordable housing. 33% of all of our sales went towards affordable housing development. We've sold for denser development, multifamily, new types of development like Bevel Greens that David was talking about earlier. And so it's really been a driving force for redevelopment in Indianapolis, especially Center Township. So we land bank a little bit differently than the Muncie Land Bank does. Like I talked about, we acquire the property when it is abandoned and vacant, usually when it doesn't sell through tax sale. Then it's placed into our inventory. In partnership with the city of Indianapolis, we stabilize that property. So we go to the property, we board it up, we basically bring it up to code where it's not necessarily a safety issue for that specific neighborhood. We get all sorts of crazy things with these properties when we get them, like rats, raccoons, like no stairs, like sometimes the house is just simply a shell, sometimes it needs to be demolished, so we also do that. And then, we continue to mow the property, we take care of the property, and at the same time, we market the property. So we list the property for sale. And the biggest, yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about that stabilization?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned boarding it up, mowing it, maybe getting vermin and things like that out. But do you guys actually make like improvements to, like, will you put on a roof? Will you fix the foundation?
I would say generally no. Just in the way that we do things, especially, if it's like a foundation issue. My understanding is that in the past, if a house needs like an insane amount of work done to it, we don't want to, one, overburden ourselves with fixing it, and two, we don't want to overburden our buyers with fixing it. So that's something that we think about, unless it maybe has like a historical purpose. If it's in a historical neighborhood, I can't imagine we would probably tear down that house. Legally, I don't think we could. Yes.
I'll just add to that, Jim. A few years ago, we did have a partnership with the city of Indianapolis for their Repair Indy program. So those properties, 9 times out of 10 were not yet in the land bank, but they were in a condition that required a roof to be repaired, or whatever the case may be. So what we would do for the city is we would take care of the bidding and getting those repairs completed, and then the city through their code enforcement department would then attach a lien, just like they would attach any other lien, and then it would be up to the property owner to pay off that lien. Sometimes, in fact, yes, those properties did end up going into the land bank because the owner subsequently did not pay the lien.
Yes.
I see that there's like these steps here, and the one that I'm curious about is like, is there any like long-term land banking that you do? Are there properties that don't sell? And if so, do you maintain them in a way that they're accessible to the public? What do you do with properties? And the reason I'm asking this is because we've been through a couple of auctions now, and we kind of we've come to the conclusion that there are some properties that aren't going to sell for us, and we're just kind of thinking about what to do there.
Yeah, so I think that we probably do two things to address that issue. One, either we would take away the development requirement. So, maybe market it towards somebody that is going to use it for like a community purpose, like a community garden, things like that, so that, it can kind of go back into productive use that way. Or two, if it's a property that we own directly, we will put it towards perhaps one of our programs. So that was the case with a lot of our lots in Martindale Brightwood. And so we put those lots aside for our development projects with Cummins and Martindale Brightwood CDC, and basically saying nobody else wants to develop this, we'll do it for the neighborhood. And in terms of building equity, that's a huge thing, but the lasting impact that we had in those neighborhoods and those streets that we've worked on, I'm sure has been huge for those communities.
Thank you.
I think that I'm kind of a nerd about this, but in my opinion, one of the biggest, most important things that a land bank does is clear title. So title is like this thing that a lot of people just like don't think of. It is very convoluted if you're not, maybe like a legal professional or in the title business. And almost all of our properties come with a very messy title. So when they're in the land bank and before we sell it to our end buyer, we are able to work with our friends at First American Title Company to ensure that there is clear title. So some of our properties have come with $7 million mortgages on them, and we've been able to walk that through the quiet title process and get that cleared. So that is a huge barrier to redevelopment that land banks are able to kind of remove. And then finally, once we sell a property through the Indianapolis Land Bank, the buyer has 2 years to redevelop the property. So when they apply, they submit the plans that they're, what they're wanting to do to the property. And then at closing, we record a project agreement on the title that says, you're going to do what you say you're going to do within 2 years. And if you don't, we can take it back from you and put it back in the land bank. And that's pretty much happened almost every single time, except for like maybe 10 times. So 10 out of 1,200 is pretty good, I think.
So a progress agreement?
A project agreement, yes.
Question, do you quiet title every property?
Only properties that need quiet title. So some of them might have city liens on them, like sewer liens or something like that. Usually we can work with the city department to get those removed, but mostly just the ones with the mortgages, or if there might be like another claim to the property, like maybe the title has like fractured somewhere along the line. So those properties, I believe in total we have completed 300 quiet titles, so not all of them, but a decent chunk. Yes.
What's the process like from acquiring to the 2-year completion? Are there status updates needed or hearings or anything?
Yeah, so we require that every year our buyers submit an annual report. So it's really simple, probably complete it like 2 minutes. You just, type up and say, hey, like this is what's going on. These are the delays. We're not in the business of taking the property back. So most of the time, like with COVID, lots of delays from COVID. So our buyers let us know that that's basically what happened. And then we can be accommodating towards them as long as they're working towards finishing the project. Yes.
So a couple of questions. Like, on average, how much are you paying for the legal costs for the quiet title? And then my second question is, do you do any environmental work on the homes if you know that they're coming with, meth contamination or, other issues? I know you said the one property that you got was, I don't know if it was like brownfield or...
It was a commercial brownfield. It was a little bit different, but yeah.
Okay, so are you dealing with any of the environmental while it's...
Yeah, so with environmental remediation, we won't list that property for sale until the city gives us the go-ahead. So I'm not sure if in the past we have ourselves cleaned up any land bank lots, but the city, since it is their land bank, they will be the ones to clean up the lots before they put it into the land bank. And then with the lots that we develop through housing development, we ensure that those properties are free and clear. A lot of our properties in Martindale Brightwood have sort of a messy environmental history just because they're adjacent to industrial sites. So we make sure that those are cleaned up and want to make sure that the soil's on the up and up for our buyers. What was your first question?
The average cost for the
Quiet title. I think it depends. So most of the time they're not contested because usually the defendants in the quiet title action are companies that don't exist anymore. And, it's basically how these properties became abandoned. But I would say on average, usually maybe like $1,000 to like $5,000 per case. Would you say that's pretty accurate, Stephanie? Okay, good. Any other land bank questions? Okay, so I included a few before and afters. I'll just crouch down here because I'm like super freaking tall. This is actually one of our coworkers' houses. She acquired this before she was working with us. And this house had been abandoned, I believe, for I think about 10 years. And it was such a massive project that we actually sold it to another CDC. And they said, we don't want this, and they gave it back to us. And then she bought it, and she turned it into this. It's absolutely beautiful on the inside as well. She gave us a tour a couple weeks ago. This is a vacant lot that was developed on Rural Street in Indianapolis, sold to the land bank. And then connection to Ball State. The Ball State Department of Architecture recently, in partnership with a different CDC in Indianapolis, developed the Alley House, which is a energy net positive duplex in the Englewood neighborhood in Indianapolis. So both units will be sold for affordable housing development, and they actually just finished this project, so we were affiliated with that. That was a land bank lot that we held for them for, I believe, at 4 years. We helped make that possible for them. So we wanted to wrap up by talking about our home power program and our partnership with Cummins to kind of say, this is how we all work together and this is what's possible. So I'll start, then everybody else can jump in. I want to start by saying that the way, like our approach to comprehensive community development really begins with land banking and land assemblage. So, while we don't necessarily acquire our properties through the Indianapolis Land Bank, we use our technical skills through understanding how to land bank and how to assemble land to really understand, one, this is how we're going to plan a project, and this is where we need to look. These are sites that we need to look at, and understand the different ways that we can acquire chronically vacant and abandoned sites for redevelopment. Anybody else wants to jump in?
Jim?
No,
How do you purchase off your land bank?
Okay, yeah, so it's an application process. So I know Muncie Land Bank does bids. We do applications, so it's a rolling application process. So once a month, applications are due. The application is basically submit a scope of work. If it's a vacant lot, include site plans, and then also include a proof of funds. So what you want to do and the money that you do you have the financial ability to do that? And so then it goes through a 3-step application review process, and then it's approved, title clear, and then you have 2 years.
And is this me going after a certain house, or do I need to just submit an application?
Yeah, so you would apply for a specific property. So occasionally we'll have competing properties, and usually if both applications have everything they need, it's just whoever applied first. So we don't negotiate with price or anything. We don't bid up. We just sell at what we're asking.
And do you have a site?
Yeah, so it's renewlandbank.org. One note is that we're so good at land banking that we don't have any properties. We don't. The city hasn't put any properties into the land bank for a couple of months now, and yeah, it's the amount of properties that they have in their inventory is drastically lower than what it was in 2014. So, successful program. Yes, sir.
The first thing you said, I didn't quite understand. You said for community development, comprehensive community development, starts with land banking. You don't get the properties, but you use your understanding of land banking to. I didn't understand.
Right.
What you were
So
saying.
it's not that because just of the way that our land bank's structured, right? So we don't buy properties through the Indianapolis Land Bank, but when we're thinking about this Cummins project with Home Power, we want to identify how do we acquire land, and how do we basically create a land bank, for our housing development, arm. So, for example, we bid a tax sale. And a lot of people in Indianapolis that could want to develop in Indianapolis don't bid in tax sale because they don't necessarily know how it works. We purposely pursue properties that might have messy titles because we have the understanding of how to clear those titles or resolve those legal disputes and then turn a problem property into affordable housing.
We have that partnership with First American where we work with them.
Yes.
So I think the biggest thing you should think about is partnerships, where we have fortunate to have a lot of different entities within Intent that do really specific but broad things. We also work with banks and title companies and real estate agents and all kinds of other entities and groups that actually work within the market and work within the system. And we kind of try to make sure that people don't fall through the cracks, make sure properties don't fall through the cracks. And that's what we kind of do, kind of clean up, make sure everything operates where the market can't work. Go ahead.
All right, I have a very I don't know if it's a blunt question, but so we have our land banking folks in the room and we have our finance people in the room. What would it take to be able to offer a lending product through one of your financial institutions in Muncie? Someone comes to the land bank and says, this property is something that I'm interested in and I am a income qualified purchaser. Would it be possible to have the equivalent of a lemonade stand that hands out loans for people in Muncie? Or
Listen, there's a lot of moving parts, but yeah, it's potential. Yeah, so it'd be something we'd have to build up to. We started this lending activities thing. We needed funding, but you need funding and pipeline. Basically. Yep. So you need funding to do it and a pipeline of potential borrowers, applicants who want to do this. and then you have the middle of people who are able to do this. And that's kind of what we are. We're the capacity that makes it happen. Then you also need people who vet the people buying the house, that would be underwriting, and then also land banking staff, make sure, are we going to put a covenant on the spot, on the lot, to make sure that they can build there, or actually make sure they actually do build it. So there's a lot of working parts. So basically, it'll take a while to work through the potential to do that. But yeah, that's kind of how we did it, kind of organically, based on need. But yeah, it's definitely possible.
What are the components in the pipeline? You said that at the beginning you need to have the capital.
Yeah,
right?
we need capital funding. A lot of our funding for our single-family lending side, and even subsidy for to build the house comes from grant funding, because basically it costs a lot to build a house.
Yep.
You need typically grant subsidy to basically make it affordable for us to actually build it, and then sell it affordably to a household. And then that also, we need grant funding so we can offer our loans at a low interest rate to the household. So you kind of need both parts. And sometimes we can use banks to provide senior debt to us, but that kind of adds to the interest rate. So we try to use grant funding as much as possible. And then since obviously we aren't in Muncie, we need a partner entity here helping us to build up the pipeline of properties and potential clients to apply. And then that entity here also needs to know what the potential for what that product is, because there are guidelines to our underwriting products. Then we work with a bank to help develop those and use their expertise. So there's a lot of different pieces. So this isn't like something we're going to figure out here, but definitely this is a thing for other meetings to talk about how to work through this. So roughly, I mean, it could take several months to a year to really work out the kinks to get this going, and then you do it, and you start working out more kinks of how to actually do it well. Does that kind of answer your question?
Doing it well would be a novel for us.
Yeah,
so yeah, that sounds great.
But yeah, so we're still learning things, and we still have really oddities where one person makes the income, but the other person has the credit score that we need. So how do we deal with that? And then we're talking about I-10 lending to people who aren't permanent residents, so we're still talking about that. So there's a lot of people out there who fall through the cracks, who aren't being serviced by banking market or through even other CFIs. So that's where we hear about them. We're like, can we develop a product for that? And so land banks, obviously you see a lot of different oddities and weird things. So you think, can we do that? Because you're also a business too. So you have to do something where you can actually do the product or do the program, but also make money to pay your staff or get grant funding to pay your staff.
Question. So one other question real quick, and I'm sorry that I'm asking so many, but this designation CDFI, does that open up a pool of money, or does it make the lending requirements less stringent, or some combination of the two? Like, what does this because everyone up here said they're part of a CDFI except for Jeb.
So yeah, I wanted to cover that. So we became a CDFI because we wanted to access funding from the CDFI fund, which is a department of the U.S. Treasury, and so they have grant funding. If they didn't offer funding, we wouldn't do it, because it's like reporting, doing grant reporting, regardless if they give you a grant. So every quarter we have reports we have to do just for the pleasure of being a CDFI. So I wouldn't do it unless you wanted to access their funding. And so we apply every year, every April, we apply for funding for our CDFIs to do our lending. So that's the reason why you do that. But you don't have to be. You can just be a loan fund. You can be a nonprofit loan fund making loans. You can apply to the state, your city, to private philanthropic groups for funding to run a loan fund program to lend to people building on your land bank lot. So you can do that. That's possible. But when you become a CDFI, there is a little cachet, I would say. People understand that you have a certain board consistency, you have policies and procedures, that you know kind of what you're doing, so they kind of understand or kind of treat you differently. So there is that aspect too. So it's definitely worthwhile to become a CDFI, but you don't have to be a CDFI to be a lending entity. It is worthwhile, if you're thinking about creating a CDFI, it's actually worthwhile to meet with other CDFIs, because like in Southern Indiana, there's a lack of CDFIs. There's no CDFIs. There's CDFI-friendly Bloomington, but they're not a CDFI yet. So there is a lack of CDFIs, and they've met with us too. My same recommendation to you is you can look at your needs. Do you need to create a CDFI, or is it easier to actually entice another CDFI to work in your area? Because sometimes it's easier, because it's a lot of work to create a CDFI, maintain a CDFI, and you need expertise. So when I used to work at the city making grants, I came to King Park at the time to do this, and I had to switch my gears from making grants to becoming a lender, which I used to do that early part of 2000, being a lender, so I understood it. Because sometimes you had to say no. Sometimes you had to say, well, we had to develop a product for this. I had to mitigate risk. I had to think about who are my clients, what kind of risk do I have to mitigate. So these are the kind of things that you need people with experience. I stole her from a bank. I stole her from one of our partners.
Yeah.
And same with David. Huntington Bank, 15 years, David left. So I took them from banks because I needed people who understood loan procedures and typical best practices.
And one way to mitigate risk also is like with the credit score and then debt to income. So you can, create percentages, like a percentage of, you want this borrower to be under a certain debt to income percentage to ensure that, they're going to be, it's going to all work out, they're going to make their payments.
Yeah, and for some people who don't qualify, so say you set those underwriting guidelines and say they qualify, great, but some people don't. And that's when you work with partners who have wraparound services to help those people, and eventually maybe they can qualify for your loan product or qualify to go into your properties. So you don't want to say, well, nope, sorry, too bad. But we do have outreach partners who basically do that for our refinance program, where if they don't qualify, we refer them somewhere else. So you don't want anyone to get lost. You try to find another partner that does it, but you don't want to create that same program because that's taking your admin dollars. You want to refer to someone who does it, and that's what they specifically do. Does that make sense?
And then, Evan, just to tag on to that, very specific to the land bank and our CDFI, and actually a few of the projects that were mentioned here today, we took several steps. We had a few internal meetings, brought in some general contractors who purchased properties through the land bank before. We talked to them in regards to what's keeping you from either purchasing additional land bank properties and building homes, or what barriers are you facing? And of course, they all talked about the funding side, their inability to get funding from a traditional bank, having to go to a hard money lender and paying crazy interest rates. So we took a look at that. Like I said, we had several internal meetings, and we wanted to talk about what can we do. But we're always, I think is where we're going here with this comprehensive community development. We're always trying to use more than one of our initiatives in literally everything that we do. So when we're talking about the land bank and being able to turn those vacant and abandoned properties, giving the contractors that source of capital so that they can be able to successfully purchase a land bank property and build an affordable home on there as well.
Yeah, I think Ben really covered that in 72, where like if Ben just builds a house, he may not necessarily be able to find a conventional market rate product from a bank to sell that house affordably to someone else. So that's why we partner with HomeSmart to make that happen. Otherwise, it'd be really difficult. It is hard to find someone.
Especially now,
yeah,
with interest rates. I mean,
at
the
7,
way they
6,
are,
yeah. And so Stephanie's saying, so we created a construction loan product to help our contractors to build the house, to cash flow their products, because they're also struggling too to build these houses. They have to pay for all the material and their staff before they get paid. At basically almost, they may take draws, but basically they're waiting to get paid. And a lot of these contractors are trying to start up, and it's hard for them to start up. So you kind of find those gaps in the market, but we have to create those things, and we have to partner with each other to make these happen. Or otherwise, land bank can be really hard, development of housing can be really hard, and lending can be really hard too, because we almost have to work together to make an affordable house happen for anybody, especially in this market.
Are you using any HUD funding or other sources of funding with the CDFI and the...
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, we apply for grant funds constantly. We do on the development side too. Like anytime the application comes out, we're always looking for new grants, philanthropic grants, federal grants, state grants, local grants. There's always a new acronym we have to learn constantly. Every month, every week, we get newsletters, and we read them, say what funding is out there, and that is the subsidy we use to build a house, that we use to lend to that house. The one big problem there is we have to make sure we don't have conflicts when we are lending to a property, and that's what we do. And all this is something that a client or a borrower doesn't even know is happening, but we're spending sometimes a year developing the program, and then we do it. They're like, oh, it's working, and then we get the person in the house, and that's all they care about. And that's great. That's all they should care about is getting into the house. But we care about all the minutia, just like being a nerd about title stuff, which is really important. We're the nerds about all this other stuff to make these programs work to get people in the house, but they don't see the stuff that's uncool in the background just to get someone into that house right there. It takes a lot of work, a lot of partners, a lot of funding, a lot of partners with state and funders too, and we have to explain a lot of PowerPoint presentations that explain what we do to our funders as well. So yes, we do.
So with Home Power, we did use, we were able to get ARPA dollars from the city of Indianapolis to help construct the home, and then as we talked about, we paired our CDFI, on the CDFI side, our Home Smart mortgage, which assists with making the home affordable.
And that's really, depending on the funding source, can be the biggest obstacle or the biggest advantage, is the ability to pair other funding sources depending on the project. So each seems to be different, but definitely if that avenue is there, an opportunity for pairing different funding sources into one project is the most ideal, but that doesn't always happen depending on the funding.
Do you require that the folks buying these homes have homebuyer education?
We do. We obviously offer it now ourselves, but it's there's free classes that we link them to that they can do within a day and get a certification.
Yeah, I think that makes a big difference too in people being successful.
Yes.
Yeah, and also we definitely discuss, like I discussed with the applicants and the loan officers at the bank, you know, kind of discuss, like, so if they get approved, they still need to make sure that they're not going out and buying some, you know, a whole furniture set once they're approved at the bank before they go into underwriting, because then that can make or break you at that point. And also just, you know, trying to help people figure out how to budget and be able to make their mortgage payments. And I think that's another good thing too about these new construction homes is people are going into the homes that have, you know, brand new HVAC systems, appliances. The only thing that they need to buy themselves is a washer and dryer, but we have the hookups in there. So they're gonna be set for success as soon as they move in.
That's a good point, because there's folks we've worked with in our pipeline that knew the home and the lot they wanted for 2.5 years. Unfortunately, sometimes our time frame as far as when a project starts and when they actually get in a home can be a long time, and they have to maintain that income status, that mortgage qualification status, and re-income qualify. But we've had probably a handful that have waited that long just because of the benefits behind it, and if you do it right, you're putting someone in a great position and a great home. Yes.
Question. So with most of your like home buyers, are they doing your loan product that you were talking about where there's no appraisal, or you do the realtor property report or whatever?
There's two different products. One for the refinance doesn't require appraisal. For the home purchase, it does.
It does, and it's a normal like appraisal that you would have with anything else. So have you ever have challenges like when you're going in and you have a home that is in an area where nothing else is nice?
No.
And there's been no sales, like how do you deal with that?
Yeah, we actually had an issue with that with, I think it was our second or third Home Power home where the appraisal came way under. And so the sales price of all the Home Power homes is $240,000, but it has that soft second mortgage, the $90,000 that Cummins put toward the initiative. So the borrower is only making payments on the $150,000. So when the appraisal came in, it was under $240,000, and we had to figure out a way to get another appraiser out there because it was kind of like the appraiser, the first one, seemed kind of biased to the neighborhood a little bit, you know, and that's something that we try to avoid as much as we can, obviously.
It's a big fair housing problem.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
So we discussed that with the bank. They usually use a pool of appraisers, so we discussed that's probably an issue in the future if someone is biased towards an area. And obviously, as we're building, sometimes in the same areas, we kind of know what the comps are. And so we kind of do research to make sure we can basically build a house and sell it for what we need to sell it at. And so we do, but you never know. Appraisals come back, we're always like, is it going to come back? Right. But right now they're coming out right at what we need or right above. But it is something we have to watch and make sure we understand what it could come back at.
A lot of times we'll do appraisals up front too, based on new construction, and sometimes it's a requirement to do a plans and specs appraisal. So we're not completely in the dark of what it should end up at, or pretty versed in appreciation and from time to start to finish. And in our rehabs we do the same thing, just so we're aware of where it's going to end up at and where we need to be at, so we're not breaking the bank on our organization on putting forth the quality we want to put in, but also not putting our homeowner and ourselves underwater on each and every rehab we do.
The construction loan program, are the people that you work with, are they doing 20 houses, or are you talking about
It's smaller
small,
contractors,
like,
yeah. They'll do 1 to 3 homes. We haven't. That's who we're trying to focus is towards the smaller contractors. Trying to let them actually start sometimes, or actually maybe expand their business by giving them a loan so they can use their cash for other things, or maybe even bid on other projects. So that's what we're targeting.
Yeah.
So it's not we could do established, but it's not really established larger contractors. And I think there's a question right there.
I have a question with the Cummings relationship, kind of piggybacking off. Did they commit to so many properties that they would help with? I'm just wondering how sustainable.
Well, they committed to a funding amount, and then we broke it down to how many houses that would be, and they told us how much they wanted the second mortgage amount to be, so we kind of could figure out how many homes that was going to be.
Which is 12 homes, 12 brand new construction homes for that first round.
Are they funded any of that back by grants, or is it just like a one-time gift amount?
Currently it was a one-time, we call it the pilot. So this was the first year for the pilot, and then we're in additional discussions to talk about furthering that relationship.
Right. Do you know off the top of your head how much we leveraged the Cummins grant?
I don't know.
You don't? Okay. So it was a lot, right?
It was a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
So like that's
It's been a great endeavor because it's it's outside the realm of, not saying city funding or the traditional funding isn't bad, but there's a lot of obstacles, there's a lot of slowdowns. We were able to give folks, because one of the challenges as well for folks is timing, especially affordable homeowners. We want to make sure their home is ready when we say that it's going to be ready. A lot of folks can't afford month to month, even if it's just 3-month rental. That can be a breaking point that then disqualifies them because of having to pay that extra money. So Cummins project has been phenomenal in so many ways, but also just timetable wise and knowing all the things they require and everything that we're gonna do is really clear cut.
So I think we might be at time. Just go until 2. Okay. Just get out of here.
Give one more time. No, yeah. Respect your guys' time. Thank you all for coming. Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of dizzy after. I mean, it's a great present, but there's so many things going on. We're kind of step A, B, C, D. But I think this was really valuable. And yeah, the different folks, the different sectors they represent, I think helpful to see if we can build a relationship with you all or draw on your expertise.
We really started at step A, B, and C too, though. As an organization, it starts there, and and I've been around to see what we traditionally worked on, homeowner repair programs, to evolving. It starts there. So we understand that.
Yeah, and that's where I had more time, and maybe that's where a next meeting can happen. But like talking more about those nuts and bolts. How do you get from point C to D? But thank you all really for coming and
thank you for
sharing with us. It was great to have you.
We would love to have you, in Indianapolis.
Yeah, maybe we can organize a little cohort from from Muncie to go and visit and
That'd be great.
continue this conversation. Yeah.
I will just add, and I'm sure Jeb has had conversations with you before, but Jeb and Ben and the team, they've really been a powerhouse in regards to talking to cities and towns throughout Indiana. So we are definitely here and willing to talk more about a partnership in regards to technical assistance
Yeah.
with your land bank, as well as how we might be able to partner with some of our other initiatives.
That would be great. Thank you. Thanks for coming as well. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll close there. Any closing comments? No? There's lots and lots of food. So if you want to take a plate with you.
And our contact information is in the back. Feel free to take our cards. If you
Oh,
can reach out, anybody wants to reach out to us individually.
Thank you, everyone.